Welcome, everybody, to this 11th edition of the Nudge Global Impact Challenge. We're coming to you live from the Audio Vision Studio in Amsterdam. It's such a great pleasure, but also a strange experience to be doing this because there is no studio audience. There is, in fact, only a very distant, properly socially distanced audience with thousands of kilometers apart. It's really great that we're all here, that we can do this together, that we can kick this off. So there are, if we have calculated and counted correctly, there are 58 participants who have logged in. There are people from Nudge are logged in, people from LeaderScope Network are in here, their coaches are in, the guides are in, the managers of many of the participants have been invited and should be in. We have a lot of guests that we've invited. The Nudge Advisory Board is here, and a lot of people from the alumni are here. And we really hope that we have a wonderful program for all of us so that we can share knowledge and inspiration and really kick off this program. I think it's really wonderful that you're here, and I will just quickly tell you what we're going to do so you have some sense of what to expect. But before I do that, I should tell you what my name is. My name is Ama van Dantzig. I have a Dutch and a Ghanaian background. And if you find my last name difficult, feel free to call me Ama Fantastic. I own it. A lot of kids called me this as a child because they couldn't say my last name. Fantastic is really not a bad word, so Ama Fantastic, if you can't think or say Van Dantzig. We are going to be doing many different things. We're going to be talking amongst ourselves in breakout sessions. We're going to have keynote speakers who will be sharing their knowledge. They're leaders in sustainability themselves. We are going to be hearing from Nudge themselves. We'll hear from LeaderScope. We will continue to exchange and interact. And the whole way through, we're going to be wondering, what are we taking along? What are our takeaways in this? And to do this, you will have different platforms to do this. So I would like to tell you a few things about the practicalities of how we're going to be running this show. We have, first, you're all on Zoom. Now, for those of you who haven't used Zoom much, we would love for you to put your name and your country in your dialog box. You do this by right-clicking. There are 3 dots in the corner. You right-click, it says rename, pick rename, and when you pick rename, you can put your name and your country in the box. Now, for those of you who are at home, have noisy pets, or children, or grandmothers. These days, grandmothers are quite noisy. Don't you worry about a thing, because the studio has muted you. So we have the power. We have kept you quiet. If I make strange noises, all of you will hear it across the globe. If you make strange noises, you're fine. Also, please leave your camera on, because we want to see your beautiful faces. Also, if they're not beautiful, it's still a face. We love it. And make sure you pin the screen of Nudge. So on your screen, look at speaker view and look for the screen that has a square around it. That is the Nudge Studio screen. You right-click on the three dots in there, right-click there, and pick pin. Then you've pinned it, and then we can be in the show together. And that helps you see what's going on in the studio. And now I'm going to say something that I usually don't get to say in events like this. Keep your mobile phone close. Usually I tell people to turn their mobiles off, keep their phones away so that they can focus. Now I get to tell you to keep your phone close by, because we will be using Mentimeter. Mentimeter, we will explain how exactly to use that, but you will be using your phone to do that part of the program. And the other way we will be interacting with you is through Zoom chat. Now, it is also my understanding that this program is being recorded. So for anybody who's watching this afterwards, welcome to the show. Really great that you're here. Also, you are welcome. So without much further ado, I would like to go to the studio and invite 2 very special people, Jan van Betten, the founder of Nudge, and Ilse Lettinga, the manager of the challenge, who will join me here in the studio. A warm round of applause for them. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, I know across the globe people are clapping for you. It's really great. Jan, it's really great that you're here. And on this sunny day, you've hidden yourself in a studio with me, and I feel very honored that you're doing this. Yeah. First to you, Jan, you founded Nudge 10 years ago. 10 years ago in 2010. So we want to know from you, what is Nudge actually, other than nudging a person on? What is Nudge?
I would say Nudge is a movement, is a coalition of the willing. Today, some 75,000 people joined Nudge, and the whole idea is that together we change the world for the better. That's exactly what we're trying to do. So we are trying to really, nudge people, nudge the world, nudge our communities, and make a change for the better. That's what we try to do, and we do it together.
Yeah, so it's really about doing it together, being on the same page, and willing to move in a shared direction together. Okay, so what made you do this? What spark ignited the Nudge Global Impact Challenge? What is this spark?
Well, the Nudge Global Impact Challenge itself was sparked by a young woman who came to me and asked how she should work with her boss in her very large company. Because she was very excited about and interested in sustainability, and her boss wasn't. And he said, just go make money, get your targets in, get your bonuses in. And then she came to me and asked, should I change companies? And I said, well, maybe not, because if we can help you to light the fire, as in bottom up, and we give you the tools to talk to your boss and to change the company from within, that would be lovely. And that's how we started working on this program. And now, we have over 1,000 people, alumni of this program, who have been following us.
Yeah, this is really special because I think it's quite an ongoing conversation, at least in my circles, of change from within. Right? Like, how do you do that, and how feasible is this? But you've been doing this for 10 years, so you know what is possible, and you still see that more is possible. So what is it for you, Jan, that is really important for participants to remember? What do you want them to know?
Well, I think I want them to know that, first of all, there is no one single truth.
Wow.
That's very, people come to this program and think, teach me how to do it. And of course we give you we give you tools, but there is no one tool. There's no one single truth. You have to listen to your heart and listen to where your energy is. And if you do that right, you will come to the answers. And then try to find people around you who you bring into the play, because you can't do it alone. So these two things, listen to your heart and where your energy is. Don't be afraid to change your plans, because sometimes you need to do that. And seek for people around you who really want to help you, because you can't do it alone.
No, this is beautiful, because actually these are essential lessons in life, I would say. Really listening to yourself. Nobody really teaches us this. And involve people and be fearless when it comes to changing your plans. So that's really a really interesting set of elements in a world where there isn't a singular truth, and how to transform, change things from the inside. So thank you so much for that, Jan. And I know you'll be here for the rest of the program with us. So thank you very much. Those of you at home, I know you're giving him a warm applause. I trust this. Moving swiftly to Ilse, the manager of the program. Ilse, you're looking really good, looking fresh. You've done this challenge 10 times.
Yes, can you believe it?
Incredible. And bored is not the look. It's not the look of the day. You don't look bored at all. So what is it that excites you about this program? What is it that stops you from being, not stops you, but keeps you from being everything but bored? Exciting. What is exciting about it?
Well, besides the fact that I like organizing, I like communications, I like being with people. And specifically with the challenge, I like to be with our millennials group because they excite me and they energize me. So that's maybe what you see. And doing this year after year and knowing there's a new group every year to give new vibes and energy.
In fact, it's the elixir of youth, you say. This is what keeps it fresh.
Maybe a new secret.
Yeah. It's not in a pot. It's in running a challenge.
Yes.
Okay, great. And how have you seen the challenge evolve the last 10 years? How has it changed?
When we started the challenge, Jan and I, in 2012, we had the idea of teaching young professionals the combination of leadership and sustainability. And we organized a Dutch Nudge Leadership Challenge for Dutch young professionals. And this went on for a couple of years, and we really felt we had something unique. The response was great. And participating companies who allowed their young professionals asked us, we have English-speaking young professionals in our organization. Can't you do this in an international setup? And so we did. So we changed from a Dutch program to an international program. And secondly, we focused very much on the leadership aspect in the beginning. But after seeing the impact being realized, so really seeing tangible impact after so many years, Jan and I changed the focus a bit more and say, this is what it is about.
Yeah.
It's about listening, but it's about doing. So we changed the name from a Nudge Leadership Challenge to a Nudge Global Impact Challenge.
Yeah. Okay, so you're really pushing boundaries. You went beyond
Absolutely.
the boundaries of the Netherlands and made it...
And for us, it's important after each program to listen to our own feedback, but to listen to the feedback of the participants. Each year, a new group, but we want to evolve, and this is the result of evolving 10 times.
Yeah, so I hear this a lot from both of you. So bottom up, really listening to what's going on among people to shape your program. It sounds really exciting indeed.
It is.
Yeah. So what I wonder, what are the characteristics of a leader in sustainability? Does that have a smell? What does it look like? What are the characteristics? When you see a person, do you think, you?
Well, Jan already mentioned we have 1,000 alumni.
Yeah.
So I was lucky to be around 1,000 people in the last 10 editions. And what I can conclude from that is I would say 3 things. A good leader is capable of shaping a great team around him or her, because you need a team. You can't realize impact on your own. And secondly, I would say never be afraid to ask for help, for guidance, and maybe ask people that you wouldn't think of in the first place. So maybe ask the professor of your university, or ask the father or mother of a friend who just started their own social enterprise. And thirdly, I would say believe in yourself.
Yeah.
What you need is in yourself. And I know it's true.
Yeah.
So,
it lives in you.
yes.
It
believe
lives
in yourself.
us.
What you need is there.
Yeah. Really beautiful. I have a friend in Ghana who has this rally call. He always says, it lives in us. It's a poetry group, but they always say, it lives in you. It's a really beautiful thought. And I think also it's really special that you say asking for help. Because a lot of us, maybe especially women, I don't know, we don't ask for help so easily. So it's really great that you say that this is actually a key characteristic of being a sustainability leader who is creating an impact. So thank you both. Thank you so much for giving us a context and setting the stage for the rest of the program. A warm round of applause for them as they leave the stage. Yeah, thank you. Yes, we do have hype people here in the studio who are keeping the energy up. Thank you. Now, I would like us also from behind our desks to give a warm applause for our first keynote speaker, Mr. George Papandreou, who has appeared on the screen. Welcome, Mr. George Papandreou, who was the former Prime Minister of Greece from 2009 to 2011. And he's currently a member of Parliament for the Movement for Change in Greece. So he's still involved in politics, still involved in creating change. The floor is yours, Mr. Papandreou. Welcome. A warm round of applause for you. Round of applause, round of applause. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ama fantastic. Hello, Jan. Hello, Ilse. Great to be with you even from afar. I'll start by saying that I became a refugee at the age of 15. It was a military dictatorship that took over Greece. They came to our house in the middle of the night. I helped my father hide, but when they put a gun to my head and threatened to kill me, he came out of his hiding place. Both my father and my grandfather were arrested, and it was not the first time our family was jailed or became refugees. My great-grandfather was also a refugee from Lithuania and was jailed in Siberia before he escaped and came to Greece. It was the second time for my father and the sixth time for my grandfather. Actually, my grandfather died under house arrest a year after the junta took over. His funeral became the first anti-junta demonstration. His nickname, the Old Man of Democracy, his whole life he had fought for democratic change in Greece. My father was released after 8 months when we then were exiled, traveled a bit like gypsies around the world, Paris, Stockholm, Chicago, finally Toronto, Canada. We spent 7 years in exile. I often wondered what it would mean to be a refugee, and I got the answer years later when the Prime Minister of Sweden, Olof Palme, unluckily later assassinated, asked me to come and help him. I was a young parliamentarian then. He took me on his campaign trail. When he spoke, he defended Sweden's policy for accepting refugees. They enrich our society, he said. But they are also change makers. Willy Brandt, Bruno Kreisky, who later became chancellors of their countries in Germany and Austria, were refugees in Scandinavia. Oliver Tambo, an iconic figure for a free South Africa, was a refugee in Sweden. Then he would give me the floor and I would describe my experience as a refugee in the Swedish I spoke. Change makers. And yes, the 7 years in exile, beyond nostalgia, we in exile, many Greeks in exile, would be thinking of a better world, a better future, a different and democratic Greece. A migrant, a refugee, is by his or her nature a change maker. She has lived and left a situation that was bad. So as refugees, we wanted change, and we were right to let our imagination go, freely thinking of the most profound changes needed in our country and the world. So I can track most of my basic political values back to those times as a refugee. In our anti-war demonstrations, we imagined a peaceful world. In our anti-imperialist views, we imagined liberated societies. In Black Power, women's liberation, and gay rights, we imagined respect and equality for all. In protecting the environment, we imagined a new balance between humanity and nature. And of course, with our fight for democracy in Greece and around the world, we imagined free and self-governing societies. So as a refugee, I felt I had to imagine a better world, but actually that is the definition of good politics. Now, the word politics I know today has a bad reputation, but it originates from ancient Athens when there was a true revelation. We, the people, we, the citizens, can actually change our fate. We need no tyrants, no kings, no high priests to impose on us. Politics means we collectively can imagine and implement a better future. Of course, ancient Athens had slaves, migrants, and women who had little, if any, rights. But the principle was born. We, the people, yes, we can. This optimism gave birth to a society that believed in investing in human capacity. There was theater, music, arts, there were games, athletics, there was philosophy, science, there was debate, all part of citizen education. So can we today let our imagination run freely? Can we think as if we are all refugees? And how will we change the world for the better? But actually, Ama, we are all refugees today. We are all taking refuge from a difficult world, that of COVID-19. Refuge behind a mask, refuge in our lockdowns, refuge from our normal ways. Never before in human history have we all been simultaneously affected and simultaneously conscious, sharing our experiences in real time online. And as refugees, we are living in another uncertain world. You are young leaders. How would you frame the leadership challenge of today? How should we deal with this uncertainty? And how is it relevant to your theme, the Great Reset? I will describe what I've seen in a maybe simplistic way, 3 possible leadership reactions and frameworks, each, of course, with very different outcomes. The first reaction is the most common, a conserving one. Go back to normal. People feel insecure, uncertain, so the immediate pressure on leaders is go back to normal. Follow the science, yes, but open up as soon as possible. Hope for a vaccine, and all will be well again. But the previous normal was one which brought about the pandemic. We have been infringing on our environment, and the interplay between animal and human diseases is only one of the many outcomes. The pandemic has also highlighted many more fault lines: huge inequality in wealth and power. Rich are even getting richer today during the pandemic, but also in access to quality healthcare, to water, to PPE, to access and provision of education. There's a major catastrophe going on for the poorest in the world. And tomorrow, unequal access to the possible vaccine. Frontline workers hit hardest, racial, ethnic, and minority groups suffering the most. Domestic violence against women and children on the rise. Technology, both a help, but also a tool for authoritarian surveillance and manipulation. And we see conflict and lack of global cooperation. So think as a refugee. You don't want to go back to this so-called normal, a society we have just fled from. We want a great reset. Another possible reaction is a polarizing one. I think we know who represent that today in the world. Find the enemy. This is a leadership style, a leader who feeds on uncertainty, creates more insecurity, and then does 2 things. Says, I am the strong man to save you. I am the solution to your problems. And I'm going to find an easy target to blame: the Chinese, the Mexicans, the migrants, the other party. In this polarized framework of leadership, there is little room for any kind of meaningful analysis of the real problems or debate about change. It's about who's right and wrong. It's about hate and demonizing the other. Society is incapacitated, and this can lead to violence, revolt, fascism, or authoritarianism. A third leadership reaction is a more difficult one. I would call it a creative, adaptive, and inclusive leadership framework. Uncertainty exists. You recognize it, but you use it to reimagine the future, to pinpoint the problems, to debate the issues, to redesign society. And in doing so, you bring in society, include all of, if possible. And if we're talking in a company or in an organization, bring in your co-workers. Make sure that all have ownership of both the process and the outcome. Give responsibility. Listen carefully. In a crisis, this is often most difficult, and the reason is that people push for immediate security, quick fix solutions. Actually, if we could only find an app, that would be the best solution. As Jan said, there's no one tool. And if you don't give that security, you could be, well, assassinated, metaphorically or even literally sometimes, very soon. But this kind of leadership means that it's ready to step out into the unknown, take a risk, but believe in your principles, be vulnerable, be honest about not knowing everything, asking for all to advise, to come up with new ideas, to be part of imagining a better society. But in the end, if successful, this is the most creative path. So I myself faced many crises in my life. The financial crisis is what many remember me for, which I had to deal with in making sure that Greece did not go bankrupt. But I'm going to relate another story I learned a lot from. In the midst of a crisis with our neighbor Turkey, one which could have led to war, I was asked to become foreign minister. Everybody watched how I would act. Some wanted me to further polarize. Yeah, it would have been easy to use a lot of hate speech. Diplomats in the ministry advised, don't try to change anything, just try to calm things down. Let's go back to the uneasy normal. But I took a risk. I reached out to my Turkish counterpart and called for dialogue, Ismail Cem. He responded positively. Actually, we became in many ways partners. We helped each other. I helped him, he helped me in trying to find solutions. We started on a difficult path to find these solutions. A few months into our dialogue, Turkey was hit by a devastating earthquake. I decided We could not simply stand by. I went on TV and said, yes, they are our enemies, but first and foremost, they are human beings, and they need our help. I called on the Greek people to give blood and supplies. I did not know what the reaction would be. I could have been targeted as naive or even worse. The surprise was that there was an amazing outpouring of help, so much so that the hospitals called me in a few days and said they couldn't accept more blood. A few days later, a Greek fireman pulled out a young Turkish boy from under the rubble, alive. The next day, all Turkish newspapers had one title, "Thank you, Greece," and in Greek. Then something amazing happened, Ama. Like the floodgates of empathy had opened up, and all of a sudden, people from all walks of life, Greeks and Turks, started cooperating, women's groups, mayors, basketball teams, football teams, business people, artists. People's diplomacy was what happened. While initially some had called me a traitor, a year later we had 70% approval rating for our policy. What I learned was, of course, to see a crisis as an opportunity for change, to be ready to step into the unknown. But even more so, that we, our societies, our citizens, have untapped capacity for change, for empathy, for taking responsibility if given the opportunity. Now, today we face much more massive global challenges. Let me describe three pillars I believe are most important for this transition, a great reset, if you like, to a sustainable future. First of all, the first pillar is climate justice. We have huge disparities and inequalities in this modern world. The transition to a green society must integrate climate justice, redistribution of wealth, or otherwise we will have a climate apartheid with the poorest as victims. Second pillar, climate democracy. As we transition to a green society, there must be participation, a deepening of democracy, not authoritarianism, not a breakdown of democracy, ensuring that our citizens own this process through new and innovative ideas such as citizens' assemblies, deliberation online, build up participative democracy. Actually, they're doing this in France right now. This also means giving people power, from legislating to even making them producers of energy, self-managed, in people we trust. Furthermore, we must ensure democratic control of the new technologies, from AI to robotics to green energy. Third pillar, climate education. We have a new generation which is very sensitive, fortunately. We have Greta, and not only, who mobilize the whole world. But our schools need to become the center of change and innovation, not simply training for a profession that may no longer exist, not simply being passive consumers, but active citizens, building new tools, knowledge, understanding, informed citizens that can lead the search for new types of consumption, new types of markets, new types of production, new ways to organize societies, and deal with some of the big ethical dilemmas, how we use these immense powers of our new technologies in the right way for the good. And this brings me to my final point. What is prosperity for all? And how do we get prosperity for all within the planetary boundaries? I once asked for the wisdom of my grandfather. What is a good life? I asked him. He immediately answered, you need two things, good health and good friends. I realized later that in good friends was his belief in community, and in good health was his freedom to fight for a better and democratic society. Yet this answer harks back to the ancient Greeks. Actually, Aristotle tried to define what prosperity and a good life, a sustainable life, you might say today, should be. And here are his six points. Health. One should enjoy good health and reasonably long life. Friendship. One must have good friends. According to Aristotle, human beings are innately social. Respect. One should enjoy the respect of others. Aristotle doesn't think that fame or glory is necessary. In fact, a craving for fame can lead people astray, just as the desire for excessive wealth can. But ideally, a person's qualities and achievements will be recognized by others. Today, I would add respect for the environment and the animal kingdom. Virtue. One must be morally virtuous. Prosperity. One should be well off enough so that you don't need to work for a living doing something that you would not freely choose to do. Finally, engagement. One must exercise their uniquely human abilities and capacities, engaging in scientific inquiry, philosophical discussion, artistic creation, and legislation, politics. Active citizenship was part of having a good life. As a matter of fact, the word private in Greece is idiotis, which in English is translated into idiot. So you have to be really active if you want to be, smart. But these goals are not out of our reach. They are modest goals, yet they are truly a life of prosperity. So, to our young leaders today, you are the most challenged generation. On the one hand, you are the first generation ever where humanity has such capacity, so much wealth, such technology and knowledge to be able to stop poverty, protect our environment, squash inequality, stop conflict, and build a good life for all. On the other hand, you are the last generation that can save humanity from suffering and destruction. The world must change, and it will not happen on its own. We need a coalition of the like minded, as Nudge professes. You must step up. Nobody else will for you. Step up into the adventure of the unknown by being active, being the change yourself, and making the change necessary for a better world. I know from my experience, you can impact the world and you can make the difference. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was really incredible. Thank you so much, Mr. Papandreou. So much of what you said resonates so deeply with everything I believe, and so much of what I've been discussing in my own circles. I hope those of you who are at home listening or in the office listening have a similar feeling. I think some of the things I want to highlight in what you said, because you also said it in such a wonderful structure, using 3 points and 5 virtues and all of that really helps to remember. But some of the things I want to sort of bring together include what Jan said indeed about not having a singular truth. There's not one tool. When you step up for this adventure, don't go looking for that one solution. Go and find your own. But also what Ilse said, reach out, ask for help. You can't, because in fact, when you do reach out, you will see that there are so many people like you, which is what happened when you reached out, when you chose in the crisis with Turkey, with the earthquake, when you chose to reach out and to help, you saw that there were so many people in your own country who would do the same. So thank you so much for showing us the importance of courage, the importance of creativity, the importance of being brave enough to navigate new paths, to seek other ways of doing things. I know her from a very long time ago, and she's the president and CEO. Welcome, Miss Hafsat Abiola Costello. Thank you for joining us. Miss Abiola is from Nigeria, but is calling in from Belgium, which is how the world is shaped these days. We are not where we are from always. She's the president and CEO of Women in Africa Initiative. That is an organization that supports the economic development of women and supports people with high potential, women with high potential, to really strive to achieve their potential. She is a great thinker. She's an inspiring woman, and she has done so much around human rights, civil rights, and democracy. And she definitely has her work cut out for her with everything that's going on in Nigeria at the moment, where there's a huge movement on the streets to end SARS, but I won't get into that. I will just quickly give the floor to Miss Abiola at home. Please give her a warm round of applause. Thank you so much for being with us. Welcome, Miss Hafsat Abiola.
Thank you very much, Ama Fantastic. And to Ilse and Jan, thank you for inviting me to be part of your awesome event. I wanted to show my green painting, which is part of the oil-rich delta in Nigeria. But if it didn't qualify, I also have my green passport, my Nigerian passport. It's such a pleasure to be with you and to have been able to listen to the earlier Mr. How do you say his name? Papandreou?
Papandreou.
Papandreou. he gave an awesome speech, and I'm not happy at all to be following after him. I want to offer my thoughts on the question of prosperity for all, the Great Reset. And I want to take it from really my two key identities. One, that I'm African, I'm Nigerian, and the second, my sex, that I'm female. But let me first start with the biggest nudge that I had in my life that started me on this journey that I've taken for the last maybe 27 years. At the age of about 18, my father won an election in my country, in Nigeria. It was the presidential election, and the year was 1993. But unfortunately, the Nigerian military decided that they had made a mistake and they didn't actually want to have a democratic system at the time. And so they canceled the election after millions of people had voted, after my father had gotten about 60% of the votes. So my father challenged that, and he challenged that for a year until he was put in prison by the army. And my mother then took up the struggle on his behalf to represent him. She was a high school graduate. When she was in high school, she was brilliant. She was the head girl of her school, but her parents decided not to send her on to university. So she never had a university degree. And she spoke English, but not very well. And she, in spite of that, because of our love for my father, because of our commitment to the struggle for democracy in Nigeria, she was on CNN, she was on BBC, she was on every international television news station speaking about the Nigerian people's demand for a democratic system. She was leading marches and demonstrations. When she first married my father, she had been such a stellar student in chemistry and had aspired to become a pharmacist. So my father said to her, I will let you go back to university once we're married and you can become a pharmacist. You can be whatever you want. This was before the marriage. As soon as they got married, she got pregnant. And after she had the first baby, within a month, she was pregnant with me because I was the second. And she proceeded to have 9 children. She lost 2. And there was no time to go back to university. And one day, she came to us, my siblings and I, and she said she wanted us to talk to my father because every time she brought up the question about working, because now she was not thinking about going back to school, she was just even thinking of having a job, he would become very upset and say, am I not providing for you? And all these things. So she kept pushing. And when she saw that there was no headway, she asked my siblings and I to intervene. And my father was very big on his children. He just adored his children. So one day he came back from work, maybe past midnight, as he often did. And he went into each of our bedrooms. And when he came into my bedroom, he sat by my bed and played with my feet. So I woke up. And then he said, Hafsat, can you believe your mother wants to work? And he said it in the way that somebody would say, can you believe your mother wants to take cocaine to the United States and sell it? It was just that kind of dismay. And I looked at my dad and I said, but Daddy, many of my friends' mothers work and there's no problem. Now, you have to know that as you're looking at me and you think you're looking at Hafsat Abiola, when my father looked at me, he saw his own mother because I looked exactly like his mother. And so from the time I was very young, he always looked at me with a special affection. And he always felt, oh, this is my mother come again. And it was good for him because his mother died before he earned his first salary. So he couldn't ever take care of her. So he had this sense that he had a new opportunity because of me. But at this critical moment when I told my father that my friends' mothers worked, my father looked at me with new eyes, and it seemed to him revealed that I could not be his mother. I must be an imposter. Nothing had ever revealed so clearly to my father that he had made an error in judgment as that moment. And it left me deeply disappointed. It went to my other siblings, and they all stood by my mom. So then he had to give in. And then he laid down conditions and all of this, and she accepted. And she started working. She set up a pharmaceutical company that sourced raw materials for the pharmaceutical industry in Nigeria. And she became a huge success. She bought property in Nigeria. I tell you all this because when my father was in jail and she was leading the movement, and people would get arrested, people would get shot, people would be in hospital, she sold those properties and she used the money to fund the movement. I always looked forward to the time my father would come out of jail. Then I would sit with him and say, Daddy, do you remember when I told you that there was no problem with mommy working? You know, when I think of prosperity for all, I think about the fact that today 22 men, the 22 richest men in the world, have more wealth than all the women in Africa. I'm speaking about 650 million women. 22 men have more wealth than 650 million African women. And we cannot say it is a matter of hard work. Please give me a moment. We cannot say it is a matter of hard work. Because if you think there are people that work hard, there are no group of people that work as hard as African women. In many parts of Africa, from the age of 13, girls are already giving birth to babies. Because of the culture, sometimes they give birth without even a birth attendant, because some of the customs tell them that they should be able to do this on their own. You know, when I was having my first baby, I have 2 children, and I was having my first baby. I wanted a home birth, but I was in London, in the UK. And I wanted a home birth because I thought with my mom having had 9 children, how hard can it be? And I just wanted it very simple and easy without any interference and bright lights to jar my gentle little angel that was coming. Let me tell you, when the first pain hit, I said to my husband that when the midwife comes, please tell her I want laughing gas. When the second wave hit, I said, Nick, tell her I want that epidural, the one that they put in the spinal that numbs the pain. When the next one hit, I looked at my husband. I said, look, just get an ambulance, put me in the ambulance, and let them baby cut me open and take this baby out. It was incredible. And our women are doing this every day across the continent with little support. They go, they walk miles to fetch water. They walk miles to get firewood to cook for their families. They farm without any compensation. The unpaid care work done by women in Africa, but also by women around the world. The unpaid care work, which is to care for families, not counted in any bookkeeping of any company or of any government, is calculated at about $10 trillion per year. $10 trillion per year, 3 times the tech industry. When we think of prosperity for all, we should realize that poverty is a construction. There are some people whose lives we've allowed to matter, and there's some people whose lives we've allowed not to matter, not to be compensated, not to be valued. And that construction that's the best news, because as it has been constructed, we can deconstruct. We can reconstruct. I also want to offer you this. They all say that Africa, is poor. Africa has, and you see the G7 make commitments to Africa. They offer aid. You hear big announcements by leaders all over the planet. My father set me on a journey to work for Africa's development from a very young age, because his commitment when he won that election in 1993 was that Nigerians would say farewell to poverty. And he wanted me to learn what are the mechanisms by which Nigerians are poor and how do we change that. And I've been studying that because he died in 1998. My mom was killed in 1996 as part of that whole movement for democracy. But their sacrifices and the sacrifices of hundreds of others, of tens of thousands of people, especially young people who led in the demonstrations, has produced a democracy in Nigeria. But the democracy is yet to produce development. And I still remember that his initial nudge to go into politics was that politics must deliver for the poor, that Nigerians must eradicate poverty. And he was a Pan-Africanist. So for me, it's natural that I would look to the larger African family. So when I was doing my master's and I did my undergrad and I was studying economics and development at Harvard and then at Tsinghua in China, this was the question: how do the Africans solve this problem of poverty? And here's what I found. One day I was because I'm always doing research on Africa, then I saw this study by the Soros Foundation. And in this study, it said they were looking at all the money that goes into Africa as foreign direct investment, as aid to help the African people, and all the money that Africa sends out into the world. So you would think, based on how you read about Africa in your daily lives, that the world is helping Africa. And you want me to now tell you what the calculation is about how much the world is doing to help Africa. What the study found was that Africa sends $50 billion every year to the rest of the world. And when they looked at what made up this figure, $50 billion, they found that 3% of it was the African governments in their corruption. You know, so the corrupt African governments that take up so many pages, and so much media attention is just 3% of the loss of Africa's wealth. 23% approximately was the criminal underworld, trafficking in women, trafficking in girls, trafficking in arms, trafficking in drugs. Then 64% was the multinationals, largely Western multinationals. So I say to you that Africa's poverty, just as women's poverty, is a construction because we've made a decision in our minds not to value the things that women do and not to compensate them for the things that they do. The poverty in Africa is a construction. Africa has fed the Western countries. Africa has fed the world for not 10 years, not 20, not 100, but for 400 years. And if that's going to change, which I hope it will, and I think we have a responsibility when we do this global reset to reset the world such that the world is not kneeling on the neck of the African people, because we're tired of carrying your weight. And now we have 1.3 billion of people of our own that need our resources for their development and their growth. So I'd love for you, I know that there are different nudges in all of your lives in the way that I had the nudges in my life, which were MKO, my dad, Kudi, my mom, gentle, gentle people, and my little children, Halil and Bella, Annabella. They're so darling, and it makes me so happy that I have them. And I know you will have yours, the different things that you're committed to. I just invite that you include Africa also in this, whatever your nudge is, whatever your commitment is, because we're the ones fueling your prosperity, and we can't afford to continue to do it. We need to fuel our own now, so that's my message about global prosperity and the reset. And I want to end with two poems. I have 2 minutes, 53 seconds. So fingers crossed, it will be enough time for the two poems. One of the poems is called My Brothers. People of men in the house, men like my dad, MKO, who was A1 and sent me to university, paid for everything, and was always a champion. When one guy tried to was thinking of raping me at the age of 8. My father came home and he heard that, oh, sorry. Yes, he heard that somebody, oh, can you hear me? Yes, okay. He heard that somebody, a guy had taken me to his room. My father came and broke down that door. So when I think of my dad, he just lives in the realm of hero, even beyond what he did for my country. So I want to share for my brothers a poem. It says, my brothers, it's called My Brothers. It says, rise and welcome a world where law protects those your strength used to. The female no longer seeks your role. Your listening ear and your respect will earn you more. Rise and rejoice the end of an era. No need now to hide your fears or your tears, to bury your weaknesses beneath battle gear. Your mortal soul is safe here. Rise and shake off the need to always put yourself ahead. The truth now widely known is that humanity does best when both men and women are abreast. Rise and ditch the cloak of tradition. That garment no longer fits the time. End the quest for control and seek instead to take up more household roles. For rising beside you now are women who claim their place. The past may have been yours to call, but the future will belong to us all. Prepare yourselves, a new day has come. And for my sisters, I have a poem called My Sisters. And with that, I'm going to end. So be at rest, Amma, because I know I'm so close to the wire. My sisters, through all that you have faced, the dangers, the lack of support, the rejection, you have remained unbowed. I bow to you. On the path that you've chosen, to care enough to work for much needed change, in spite of the lonely road, the bleak prospects, you have remained committed. I commend you. For the way you move in this flawed world, always looking out for others. Whether or not you've had someone look out for you, you have remained your sister's keeper. I salute you. At last, a new world beckons. You, me, all of us together are called to usher it in. You may stumble, I may fall, but if we stand side by side, we will rise to this task as one. I count on you. And in closing, I want to leave you with a picture from Africa. Can you please show the picture to everyone? Yes! This picture was a village in Africa. This Western anthropologist came to this village in Africa, and he wanted to give the children, he set up a game for them. And he said, whoever makes it to the tree will have this basket of fruits. Then the children looked at each other. Then they held hands, and they walked to that tree together. So the man gave the fruits to all the children. And he asked them, he said, why did you play the game like that? And they said, how can any of us be happy? How can one of us be happy? So how could the winner be happy if the rest are sad? So Amma, your dress that you wore, your spacesuit, was the final nudge for me today. Because when I think about spaceship Earth, all by itself, so very, very far from its energy source, the sun, we're about billions of light years away. It took 3 billion years or more to create life on this planet. Then I think, all these are petty fighting, all the different lines, nations, nation states, religions, ethnicities, class. These are all constructions that are interrupting the human story. It's our responsibility, and I think it's especially your responsibility, young people, to shape a world where people are no longer interrupted by these petty rivalries, so that humanity can come together and really build. Imagine that we want to send to the sun a message of gratitude for the billions of years of energy. What message would we send? Your generation can give us something to be really proud of, a message that we send to the sun, but we can also send to the children that will come in 100 years from now. It's our time to do this, and we must do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Hafsat. I have enjoyed this we've given you 2 extra minutes, 2.5 almost, but I'm okay with it, even though we're running behind time, because listening to you, I feel a little bit like I really miss my mom. My mom is in Ghana and I'm in the Netherlands and we're in the pandemic, so I'm not going to see her. But listening to you, I really feel like my mom used to wake me up at dawn to talk to me. She wanted me to understand things. So she would wake me up to make sure I was the first person she spoke to in the morning, to advise me. And listening to your soothing voice, you have really made me feel like I am connecting with that which I miss. So thank you so much. I hope for those of you at home or behind your desks, you've also enjoyed listening to Hafsat. Hafsat Abiola, thank you so much for sharing your heartfelt story with us and also pressing on us the importance of what needs to be done. Thank you for also showing us the importance of an intergenerational approach for the intergenerational conversation. So George spoke about this intergenerational connection, and you have actually spoken about this, also your connection, the sacrifices that your parents made, and really showing the intersection of gender and race and identity and separation, and how all of it comes together to create this hugely unequal world in which 22 men own the wealth that is greater than 650 million African women. This is, if you don't feel that there is something wrong or something that needs to be corrected, I hope this fact alone makes you feel called to rise. Brothers and sisters, it's time to rise. I would like to introduce our third, but definitely not our least, keynote speaker, who's quickly rounding off some business on his phone, but he will be with us shortly. His name is James Thuch Madhier, and he's the founder of Rainmaker Enterprise. He is from Sudan. He lives in Canada, and he's calling in from Kenya. And so that's really incredible if you want to talk about a global citizen. And he is none less than the winner of the 2015 challenge. So James, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us all the way from Kenya. A warm round of applause for him as he gets his thoughts together and joins us.
Thank you so much, Ama. Thank you. Hello, everyone that is watching. I don't know if you can hear me well. I don't know how stable my connection is, but I hope it is. I miss being in the room with everyone. I was there during the challenge of 2015, and it was a great vibe being together in one place. And last year, at last year's challenge, and this year is different. So for most of you that are joining online, I think it's a new experience and it's a unique one in as such, because this is where the world is at. I don't know how many of you have been in a lockdown before, whether this is your second time to be in a lockdown or your first time to be in a lockdown. For me, this is one of many lockdowns that I've been in my life. I was born into war, and I think that was a lockdown itself, because the war that I was born into in Sudan was very deadly, and it cut off the country, which is now South Sudan, from the rest of the world. And we stayed really not knowing what is going to happen next, in the next day, in the next year. For 21 years, the country was under lockdown. And that war forced me to flee my country and come to a refugee camp here in Kenya, where I stayed for another 7 years of total lockdown. 7 years, a refugee camp in Africa is different from maybe other African countries in the world, mainly because the refugee conversations that people have in Europe and the refugee conversations that people have here in Africa are different. When you are in a refugee camp is usually an enclosed environment where no one can go in or out easily. here in Africa, as opposed to, say, maybe immigrants that are coming into Europe and mingling around with people and having to shape your conversations in Europe about, who should be a migrant, who is, all the issues about refugees that have been happening in over the last few years. So I stayed in a refugee camp of Thuch in the northern part of the country here in Kenya, called Turkana County. And the refugee camp is called Kakuma, for some of you that may have awareness of Kenya. I stayed there for those 7 years, not knowing what is going to happen next. Until when I got a scholarship, my brain got me out of that situation. Very competitive in a scholarship program that got me to go to Canada, where I lived and I still live now. I'm only here because of the lockdown, which is one of those many lockdowns. But while I was staying in the camp, I got to understand, referencing back my experiences in war-torn Sudan, that comfort is the most challenging thing for a human being. Comfort is the reason why human beings, we are supposed to be, there are no such things as superhuman. Like when we have some friends that are accomplishing great things, some family members that are doing really incredible stuff, and then we call them superhumans. Those are people that have decided to not accept comfort. Right? Those are people that have accepted that being uncomfortable is actually the way to unleash your superhuman being. And this is one of the things that the experiences of living in total lockdowns for years and not just months have taught me. So when I left the camp and went to Canada for university studies, I quickly realized that it's a country that has abundance of resources, of opportunities that can easily make you comfortable and forget that the world exists beyond your own bubble. And I have also seen this. I've seen the Netherlands. I've seen this in other European countries. I've seen this in America. I've seen how comfortable people get and how comfortable they get within their own little bubbles, and how the world revolves around those little bubbles. And unfortunately, that comes with ignorance. And that ignorance is an ignorance that has resources at its disposal. And when you combine ignorance with resources, it's extremely dangerous. It is almost okay, I would say, for someone in a remote part of, say, South Sudan that doesn't know what exists beyond their own little environments, but that is the only world that they know. But it's dangerous for someone, say, who is in Amsterdam, has all the resources at their own disposal, and choose to not care about what is beyond Amsterdam, right? So when I arrived in Canada, I decided that if I were going to choose to be comfortable, then I would be doing a huge disservice to thousands and thousands of other young people and many people that I left in the refugee camp here in Kenya, and millions of people in South Sudan that are still suffering from the consequences of the war that went on for so many years. And millions of people around the world that are grappling with so many challenges, from climate change to conflicts to other things, health issues. And I chose to take an action. I chose to take an action that is inclusive, that is sustainable, and empowering to myself and to the people around me. Through this, I started an organization called Rainmaker Enterprise. And if the people that are behind the technical desk can allow me, I would appreciate if you can put on my slides so that I can take you through the work that my organization does. Rainmaker Enterprise is a social enterprise that is implementing solar-powered water systems in remote places that the world does not know much about to create inclusive and sustainable growth for everyone. You know, if there's one thing that coronavirus has shown us, for those of you that have taken the time to reflect during the few months that we have been under lockdown, you must have realized how interconnected our world is. The challenge that we are grappling with now started at a small corner of the world that none of us actually knew much about. We knew little about Wuhan. Even personally, it was the first time when coronavirus outbreak started. That was the first time for me to learn about this small city in China. But whether you are in Amsterdam, you are in Toronto, New York, or some of the most developed cities in the world, you're dealing with the consequences of what happened in that small corner of the world. So right now, as we speak, there are other pandemics, or rather challenges that the world is grappling with, but because they don't affect us directly, we do not know much about them. But if there's something that coronavirus has taught us, it is that ignorance is not only dangerous to the people that we direct it towards, it is actually also dangerous to us because it does come back to us as well. That it is no longer okay, that it is no longer comfortable to just live in your own little bubble and live without the consequences. Right now, as we speak, 1 in 3 people in the world, more than billions and billions of people, live without access to clean drinking water. And that has a lot of health impacts, public health included. Billions of people live without access to proper sanitation, no latrines, no toilets. And all that trickle down to the water that they drink, and that has really deeper challenges that come from that from a public health perspective. Challenges, you are not yet aware, even as I speak right now, that maybe in the next 5 years or in the next decade, there is another pandemic that will put the world under lockdown that is looming from some of these challenges. Even research, public health research is showing now, with climate change also adding on to this, some of the rivers that people were drinking and the evaporations, high transpiration that is happening, there are some health repercussions that are coming out from the climate change connected to the water that we drink. And there is a likelihood that there will be another pandemic coming from this particular problems that we are neglecting. So my question for you as young leaders that are embarking on reimagining the world and reimagining our economy, how we are going to reshape our economies and the policies, the interventions that we have, is, are you thinking about your own little bubble? Are you too comfortable within your own environment? Or are you brave enough to use this experience that we have gone through now to think more broadly and think more globally and act, yes, from a local perspective, but then knowing that your local actions can also impact the global scale? And that it is no longer comfortable to turn a blind eye to challenges that are far away from you, that don't affect you directly. One thing I have realized is that people talk about empathy as the most powerful tool that we humans can actually use to create a better world. But I've thought about it deeply, and I actually realized that empathy is about proximity. You cannot have empathy about something that you don't know. And you cannot know something that you don't interact with. So if you actually want to be a part of the change that want to create a world that is inclusive, sustainable, and prosperous, how are you being close enough to the problems? How are you broadening your view? How are you broadening your experiences, your connections to people, to problems that are a little bit far away from you in order to shape that particular world? When I first came to the challenge of 2015, I came with an idea that I would like to leverage to create, to bring energy solutions to people in the most desperate situations around the world, particularly here in Africa. But then a deeper understanding of the challenges, actually taking my time to go closer to the problems, made me understand that the problem is deeper than just energy, that it's also connected to food production and how food production is also affected by climate change, and how food production is connected to lack of access to water. And that drove me to broaden the project that I had come with to nudge. Thankfully, I use the training, the tools that I gained from the nudge challenge to be able to accomplish that particular goal. And that's how I embark on implementing solar-powered systems for irrigation so that people can produce food that can, so that they can supply for themselves. Because I understood deeply when I was in a total lockdown in South Sudan during the war, the only way that I could survive and others could survive around me was to accomplish our own self-independence. And right now, the world order that we have is too dependent on each other that if one part of the system is affected, then the whole thing falls down. And you know this, you've seen this during this particular lockdown, that even toilet paper, like a simple toilet paper, caused a huge challenge to our global economy, because we live in an economy that is dependent on each other. Is it possible to reimagine a world that we can create independent systems that can sustain each other, so that one part of the system fails, then the other system is working? And this is what we are trying to accomplish in South Sudan and other places that have not yet had the bad luck of the Eurocentric dependent systems, global economy that we know of. That we can imagine a prosperous, inclusive, and sustainable world that is independent. That I can connect with you while you are in Amsterdam, enjoy what you produce locally. I even have an opportunity from here while I'm in Kenya to invest in your own solution. And that way, I'm actually contributing to a sustainable and inclusive world. So can you join along as you think about how you're going to reimagine this world and have like this great reset that we're thinking about this global prosperity, that we can accomplish a world where we care deeply about each other, even though we are apart from each other? Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. Thank you for your address, and it's really a great pleasure to see you again here. And thank you so much for reminding us about that toilet paper thing that happened not so long ago, because it revealed something about how we are and what we do. And one of the things that I see happening throughout this program is, on one hand, our speakers are saying, create community, find community, get the people who know you to remind you who you are. And once you've created that community, don't get comfortable. Don't get so comfortable. Break the bubble. Seek the problem. Get closer to the problem. While there is urgency, Take your time to understand the problem so that you can come up with sustainable solutions. So thank you so much for this, James. But we will move on quickly with the program because we still have a lot to do. We have Mr. Rick Koster from LeaderScope. He is a partner of the program, and he is going to tell us more about what is going to happen in the coming months. So warm round of applause. Make sure it's circular, your round of applause. Nice warm round of applause. Rick, welcome.
Thank you so
to
much.
my stage for the...
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
What an amazing afternoon.
Yes, right? I've really, my mind is blown, I need some time to just take it all in and reflect on what has been going on.
It was incredible.
Yeah, but you were here yesterday as well. How was that?
Absolutely. Well, it was great as well because it was really about what binds us as a group. As a group of participants, and what I really saw is that a lot of people was, what am I actually getting into? What is this nudge challenge? So we really talked about that, and the most important thing is that I think we managed to get an atmosphere of openness, honesty, and being frank to each other, which is so important to move on and to improve.
Yeah, that's the community that everyone's been talking about, right? And so are you going to give us a better sense of what the program will look like in the coming months? That's what you're going to...
I will.
Yeah.
I will show what will be going on for the next couple of months to come.
Great. Well, then I will make space so that I can listen to you carefully.
See you back in a moment.
Yeah, see you in
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So is there a clicker that I can use?
A clicker.
So first of all, indeed, what we ended up with at the end of the day was, what are your commitments for this program? What do you actually say, this is my commitment? And these are some of the commitments that participants said they were making. So put energy and time into my action plan and create a lasting project. And indeed, of course, our time is pressing. So putting your time to it will increase your impact. Being fully present during all online sessions and truly listening and supporting other participants. So that's also so important to be fully present, and it's great that you commit yourself to do that, as I hope you have been doing today as well. Celebrate and share the successful milestones. So very important to share it with the whole community, please do. And the last one that I picked out was be brave. So everybody committed their own best to this challenge. So what is going to happen for the next couple of months to come in this program? And the program is based on 4 important pillars that we base the program on. And the first one is perspectives. And I think we already saw that we have a lot of different perspectives from the 3 amazing keynote speakers today. The other one is about person, about you, understanding yourself better. The third one is practices. So what are you going to decide to do next? And we're going to help you decide that next action. And the challenge purpose. So what is your purpose? What is your passion to create something that is impacting the world for a better place? So these are the 4 main pillars that we have. And then we started out building this online interactive program. And here you see it. It's quite intense, what you see here, but I highlighted some of the elements. So on the bottom, you see the changing perspective sessions. So next to the great keynote speakers that we had now today, we have 4 sessions in which we give you different perspectives to see more clearly. And they're about systemic change, they're about organizational dynamics. So how do you operate in an organization or in a community? And how do you work with an undercurrent? Very important as well. And it's about how to make choices. And my colleague, Professor Jonathan Gosling, will also be there to help us understand how difficult it is to make the right choices and how you can move along with that. Next to that, we have peer coach circles. So 4 times, groups of participants, of 5 or 6 participants come together, and they already started connecting yesterday. And they will see, so what do I actually decide to do next? And they reflect together and they action plan for the time in between. And they're being guided by former participants, and I'm really glad that these guides are in. Former participants from the 10 editions before, and they are supported by us from LeaderScope to make these peer circles very intense and a learning experience. Great that you're here all, guides. The other element is personal coaching, to understand yourself better. So each participant gets one coach, and we have 28 coaches who also support Nudge and the challenge. And they're also here in the session, so you might have met them already. These coaches will help you with your own personal question, your most important hurdle that is keeping you from creating impact. And of course, throughout the periods of that's come, you are starting to create impact. And it's your own pace and your own challenge to make that happen. And of course, in the end, the grand finale, we really hope that we can get together here in the Netherlands and we can really have a celebration of the impact that we have created. It will be really, really great to meet each other live, because we already said for empathy, you need to have proximity. So we hope to have that. If not, if COVID doesn't allow us, we will be online and we will connect in that way. And we have shown today and yesterday that it is possible to inspire each other and to become close. So, what we are looking for in your impact plan for the next months to come is that we have looked from all the years, from all the impact plans of 1,000 alumni, we looked at what is a compelling sustainability impact plan. And one thing we realize is that it has to capture you within 3 minutes. So we have to think about how can you make a speech or a pitch that compels people in 3 minutes. And we know that 3 or 4 elements are important. And the first one, you have to influence people's heads. And this is what we also saw today, the fact that 22 men have more wealth than 650 million women in Africa. That's a fact, and those facts just burn into your brain, and it's amazing when you see that. So we're looking for, if you want to build a good impact plan, what pictures, images, and what facts really resonate with your audience. Very important aspect. The second is we have to also influence heart. So next to head, we have to influence heart. And we saw with all 3 keynote speakers today that they talked from their own passion. You could see their own passion. And they have great sentences with that. How can the winner be happy if the others are not? Very, very powerful. And James talking about being uncomfortable is the key for unleashing your superhuman being. I love that sentence, and it really came deep from the heart. So what is your passion, and how do you articulate your passion? The third element is hands. So what is actually your plan? What are you going to do, and what do you ask others to do to join in? And the more feasible you make it, the more easy to step in, the easier it is also for people to get along. And I saw in your impact plans, I saw some great planning that you already have for the month to come. And if you're not having that, it really helps to plan for the month to come, but also to have some small steps as a first engagement. So what is your first small step to start on your impact plan? And then see what happens from that. Okay, very important to start acting. And the last element is what we call gut feeling. So you have to influence people by head, heart, hands, and gut feelings. And with gut feelings, we mean it's the least tangible, but it's maybe the most important because it has to do with trust, with interpersonal trust. So when you build a community, people want to be engaged in that, and they feel that they're comfortable, that they're trusted in this community. So it's also about building that. And the thing is, with trust, it's also built on self-confidence, about self-trust. And I think it's also important that we build on that. So these are the 4 elements that are so important to create a compelling impact plan. And we, from the LeaderScope, all of our team, but also the Nudge team, and all other Nudge friends that are also in today, that we're also in, we're there to support you. So any question you have, please ask us. And also any support you can give from all the people around within the Nudge network, please connect together so we can create impact together. Really looking forward to the next 7 months of working together. Thank you.